What's up, friends? This is Manni and welcome to a video testing the full Ballistic Deadbolt Paladin versus the full laser cannon M7A M6A Paladin, okay? And drawing a conclusion, which one might be the better setup, which one is more universal, and what would you run if you had the choice between the two. By the way, the Stinger only survived 2 salvos from the Deadbolts, which as a heavy fighter probably not very surprising, but just look how fantastic it looks like when it's burning out in space, standing still. Pretty awesome, seriously, man. So in this video, we're gonna have a look at the fittings, the DPS numbers that's coming up right now, and then we're gonna look at various different gameplays. Fighting OLPs with the laser versions, then fighting a Hammerhead ERT with ballistic cannons, and later a Polaris. By the way, before we start, do you also think that this, from seeing the ship from behind, this looks like a really cool perspective for the front of the ship? I don't know, it just to me occurred when I walked by the ship like this, that this looks like an awesome version of the ship if this was the front. Like, I really would also like the design if this was the front. Anyways, we're in the setup now. You see Deadbolt 5 4 times, 4,650 DPS for the gunner up top in the quad turret, and then 3,100 DPS for the guy controlling the ship. So 7,740 DPS altogether. By the way, you can get up to 70,000 missile damage if you switch the missile racks to 442 and equipped size 2 dominators. Now, the full attrition build comes at 8,300 DPS, but that's not the laser cannons. If we switch to M7As, M6As, we get 6,130 DPS only, with 920 meters per second projectile speed, whereas the Deadbolt only have 830 meters per second. Ultra slow. Very hard to hit, okay? So that already gives the laser cannons an edge. They hit more likely because the projectiles are faster. The next edge is, of course, that you never have to worry about overheating your guns. You can actually fire for a much longer time before having the first down break, with overheating that happens pretty fast to Deadbolts, but takes a while before the laser cannons get to the point of being empty. However, the recharge all the way takes longer for the energy cannons compared to the short heat cooldown of the Deadbolts. So there is a pro and con here. However, and that's the biggest con, of course, is the fact that you have an ammo capacity problem at some point with Deadbolt cannons. Size 4 and Size 4, though, do come with a decent amount of ammo pool, so you're not having to worry too much about it in the start, but after a few missions, you'll be running out of ammo eventually. Here we're running the M7As, M6As versus the OLP. I believe those are prospectors, because some of those seem to be having a mining beam on the front. Not this one, though. Or no, I think it has even. But yeah, so you see they go down very quickly, even though those are very tanky ships. But hey, when you bring 6,200 DPS with heavy alpha damage, because the DPS is only half of the interesting aspects of these weapons. The other half of the interesting part of it is the fact that it hits so hard per shot, you know? So you have a massive volley. Something coming by, just taking 2 shots, can be destroyed by this much damage output. Alright, so here's a little bit more of those ships, and again, those are really tanky ships. You would be shooting them for quite a while if you do this solo with another ship, but this build here on the Paladin just rips through them like they were nothing. Okay, so yeah, and in a minute we're jumping into the gameplay against an ERT bounty mission against the Hammerhead, and that's a difficult thing to do, especially with the Deadbolts, and that shows the biggest weakness also from the Deadbolt cannons. Because while we're having slightly lower damage output compared to the Deadbolts, right? Remember, Deadbolts almost 8,000 DPS. This laser cannon build here comes at 6,200 or something. Okay, so on paper, much lower DPS. Remember though that the ballistic cannons, they have a negative damage multiplier, because every ship hull that they hit will have a, I think, 38 or almost 40% damage resistance against projectile weapons. So despite saying 8,000 DPS, almost, or like 7,800 or 7,700 or whatever it was, despite saying this on paper in the DPS calc, the actual damage number is somewhere around 6,000 maybe, or maybe even 5,000 something, between 5 and 6,000, because you have to deal with this resistance of armor or hull. Okay, so That is also another very big disadvantage that projectile weapons have. However, you can sometimes, due to the shield breaking nature of ballistic weapons, sometimes you can kill a target without having to go through its shields first, in which case you would make up for the loss of damage by just ignoring some of the shield. Most of the time though, you have to completely break the shields before you destroy the target. I would say in 90% of all cases, which means in those situations you haven't really benefited from the shield breaking effect of ballistic weapons. Alright, so much for this. Let's jump into the gameplay against the Hammerhead, ERT, okay? So we're here, we already accepted the mission and jumped over there in this usual fashion where I cut things to the action for you guys. I'm now launching one of 4 of my 24 size 2 Dominator missiles. Again, you only get to this much missile damage output, and these good missiles that are so fast, very accurate, hit reliably, and are able to kill like small fighters in one salvo, and then 24 of them, that is absolutely unreal. The highest damage output you can get through missiles if you switch to the Missile Rack 442 and equip the Dominators in there, okay? Otherwise you would have size 4 and size 3 missiles, and size 4 are basically the same strength as size 3. It's almost no difference, and the step from size 3 to size 2 is actually not very large either. So the size 2 Dominators are just the best missiles in the game, period. Absolute meta, okay? Also because the EM signatures are usually what enemies have a higher or harder time hiding in their ships, meaning that these ones are hitting more reliably too. Okay, you see we're firing 3 salvos at a Scorpius, and the Scorpius goes down. Because ERTs now have a different fleet formation. They have a lot of ships, many smaller, some of the smaller medium, like the Scorpius for instance, and then some of the, and then there's always a Hammerhead and your lead target ship that is, in this case, a Retaliator, but it could also be an 890, for example. I'm not sure if it could be a second Hammerhead. I've never seen a second Hammerhead as the lead target ship. But yeah, so now we're firing at a Hammerhead, and unfortunately the last salvo I'm gonna fire here, despite me not changing anything whatsoever, decided to just... Oh, I saw what happened. It unlocked the target for a moment, the moment I fired. Okay, that's what happened. But the Hammerhead, sorry, the Hurricane over there is actually just crashing down into the planet. We must have disabled it with the previous salvo. Anyways, now we have the problem that we have several targets to shoot, and we're going into this a little strategically here, because we know there's a Hammerhead in this enemy fleet, and that's going to be a problem, because that Hammerhead dishes out damage that is we just can't take that damage. Not with this one lousy Corsair shield that we have, or Andromeda shield. It's just not enough against the Hammerhead, okay? But we decided to just go brawling, just guns blazing in, and pop the Retaliator real quick. The Redeemer, and then see what happens next. Okay, that was the plan. So we're going in, and yeah, we're already getting shot by the enemy Redeemer at super long distance, but it's not really hitting us. And we're holding our fire, because you see we have a limited ammo pool in the top left. Although it's going to be enough for this mission, but if we were to do a lot of missions in a row, you kind of want to save ammo all the time. It's another thing that you will have if you play ballistic weapons. You're automatically beginning to save ammo and fire only at optimum situations and distances, right? Because it just hurts to miss shots. So we're now getting in range with our weapons. My friend Czerny up in the turret is already beginning to open fire. But at this distance, it is actually really difficult to hit the target. I don't know why the game target unlocked me there. Makes zero sense, but I lost my target. And now we're having a little bit of a flyby. And we're already taking quite some shots from the Hammerhead. Because you see, and you can hear it maybe in the back, we're getting tons of hits from behind. That must be Hammerhead. But we're dishing out these almost 8,000 ballistic DPS against the Retaliator. And you see the Retaliator actually... Sorry, I'm saying this again. I mean the Redeemer. And even though the Redeemer still has shields, it's already destroyed. So in this case, we actually didn't have to completely take down the shields. It was enough to, well, bring the shields down to, let's say, 10%. But did we really benefit much from shield breaking in that case? I would argue no. It would be a different story if we had destroyed the Redeemer with 60% shield still up. Then we would have heavily benefited from the shield breaking ballistic effect. But if we bring it down to 10% the shield and then the ship fails, yeah, we may as well take down the rest of the 10% as well. And energy weapons would have probably done this at a similar speed or pace. Maybe even faster because they simply hit more reliably. We're coming in because we also wanted to see what happens if we brawl against the Hammerhead. Of course, we did take a few shots before while escaping, but you see our front shield is like immediately gone. And now our cockpit is getting hit by the Hammerhead reliably and perfectly, and it's immediately red. And before we can even drop, yeah, okay, we dropped the back shield of the Hammerhead and we're already destroyed. No chance. Now, why can't we fight the Hammerhead? Because these slow projectile weapons, they will even miss the Hammerhead at long range. Even the large Hammerhead, we would miss it at maximum range. So we kind of just had to go in and face brawl at a range where we can reliably hit. With laser cannons, for instance, you would be able to shoot from 3.5 or 3.2 kilometers distance, probably hit the target, and get away with taking a lot less damage in return. Okay, so you could potentially try to snipe the Hammerhead. Whether or not it's going to work depends on the behavior of the Hammerhead. So it can go wrong, it can go right. Yeah, you see me playing with the gimbal right now, so that I have a bit of an easier time shooting the little gladius over there. But you see there's a Polaris now. And we're gonna go full on against the Polaris. And we have the right setup. Because if you're trying to shoot a Polaris down and you're coming with ballistic weapons, forget it. You're never gonna have enough ammo to destroy that Polaris. No way. I guess you even 3 full loads of your ship, let's say 3 Paladins with the full Deadbolt bolts, I don't think even those 3 Paladins would have enough ammo to actually destroy that Polaris. So if your target is something huge, like a Polaris, in this case the Polaris somehow didn't activate the shields yet, it's activating them in a moment. But if this is a target that you want to destroy, do not bring ballistic weapons. You simply do not possess the amount of damage output necessary to destroy this ship. It is just not going to be possible, right? Even with all your ammo spent on it, you're not gonna get it down. Of course, in this situation, we also have a friend and an Idris with us, so here maybe you could combine it, but I would advise 90% of all cases you want to have an energy weapon in there, right? It's cool to try and test the Deadbolts and maybe also the ballistics, which we could do in another video. They would run very similar, but they look and feel cooler when you fire at them. But yeah, it's still gonna be the same problem, all right? You still have to shield break. You still have to take down the shields pretty much on all targets. You see the shields are now up on the... Our friend was trying to ram the Polaris with the 890. But yeah, we're now hitting into the shields that the Polaris activated. And you see by the blue polarization that the Polaris shield is actually up. Where's my friend shooting? His guns were firing somewhere else. Alright, now we're on target again. Okay. And sometimes we're missing shots because we're trying to snipe the thrusters or the engines. We're trying to snipe the engines off, and that means you have to aim precisely at a point at the end of the ship. So sometimes you're missing the targets. But you see, the 6,000 something DPS coming from this Paladin is actually pretty substantial. The Polaris is having a hard time with this because we can drop the shields pretty reliably, and we never have to worry about ammo capacity. We could just keep going, right? Maybe we change our ammo. We just lost the frontal shielding, so would be good. Oh, this time he rammed it. It would be good to turn around, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm firing empty my shots here, and then I'm gonna turn around, recharge my ammo pool, and let my friend in the top turret just fire backwards, right? So that's what I'm doing here. Turning off, away from the enemy Polaris, allowing my front shields to regenerate, while at the same... Sorry, the inverted camera really screwed with me here. And I'm allowing my friend there to shoot the Polaris while we're regenerating shields and weapons to the front. Okay, and I'm boosting backwards to stay in range. Okay. I think he's also empty with his guns, but I got fully recharged shields and everything, so we may as well turn around and keep going. But you see, the Polaris really takes time, man. That's a lot of work to get this thing destroyed. Even when you have an Idris laser on it that does, what was it, 11,000 DPS, or 13,000. I haven't looked it up in a while, but it's somewhere around this, the amount of DPS coming from that Idris laser. And then the 6,000 something DPS from these laser weapons here, right? And then the 890 that repeatedly tries to ram the Polaris. Most of the time he didn't hit it, but sometimes one of the moments he does hit it. And then they're gonna do some wiggling walk around over there. We haven't even damaged the Polaris yet, really. Just destroyed its engines, but the engines are gone now, so, or mostly gone. So they are still there. Now we're popping them, okay. Really takes some time, man. Polaris is absolutely crazy. And of course an Idris as well. So what is your favorite, friends? Would you rather go with ballistics or would you rather go with energy? For me, it's, like I said, 90% of all cases, I would rather have the energy weapons equipped. Preferably the attritions, which I normally have on this ship. I just wanted to switch it up for this video. But normally the attritions are the perfect choice. They come with the highest damage output in the game. You have a faster projectile than the other cannons, and you have you still hit extremely hard, right? Per salvo. So with that, I think the Polaris would have already lost all its thrusters and would have probably been really low on HP. And then at some point we decided that, wait a minute, because the hangar is still closed, right? But my friend will soon come in and ram the Polaris, and when that happens, the hangar actually opens. Trying to snipe. Trying to snipe here the remaining thrusters. So there's the engines. There's one more on the side, and I think then we got it. Once this one goes, it's gonna be it. That's it. No more engines on this thing. And it, by the way, it looks really ugly. When you shoot down all the engines on the Polaris, I feel like it gets really ugly. But it looks ugly, but it's okay. Doesn't need to look pretty when the engines are destroyed. But with engines, the ship actually looks really impressive. Yeah. So where's my friend ramming into that? I know it's gonna happen any moment now, because I remember when we recorded it. He came in and finally, oh, I think this might be the moment. You see him coming in the back there, and boom! Rammed in there all the way. And I think this also opened the hangar now. So the Polaris hangar is opening, and instead of completely destroying it, what we wanted to do now is like, okay, let's get in. Let's try to board the Polaris, okay? Because we have like an extension of a staircase that comes out of the Paladin to the left. If my friend, who already left the turret, just walks down the stairs and I hold him in like this, he should be able to just board the Polaris. But of course, enemy ship is never standing still. And he was trying to get out, but somehow he was wiggled around and thrown out of the Polaris. Here, I thought he left now, but he was somehow thrown out of the Polaris and I lost my engines. And I don't know why, because I only left the left part of the engines, but the entire ship was now useless. I could not decelerate, I could not accelerate, I could not do anything whatsoever. We were just adrift forever now. And I checked the fuses, they were all okay. I don't know why I'm losing my left engines and the entire ship is adrift. Very weird. But yeah, so that's the video, my friends. Let me know what you prefer and have a good one. Manni off. Bye.